Welcome to Disruptive Capitalists, the show where purpose-driven entrepreneurs and bold investors share how they're reshaping the world by investing time and money in a way that improves lives and creates wealth. So let's get to it. Thank you for joining us again today for a great episode of the Disruptive Capitalist. Today, my host is Nick Aufenkamp, and I'm already stumbling on my words, Nick. Not off to a great start here, but Nick is an agent gone rogue, teaching home buyers and investors how to purchase real estate without using a costly buyer's agent. Oh my goodness, Nick. What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. That's it's funny. That's the question that my 10-year-old asked me when I had first started talking with him about that idea, because he's like, "Dad, does that mean that you're going to be like working yourself out of a job?" I was like, that is a very astute observation of my son to make. Like, "Dad, don't you help people buy homes? So why are you teaching them to do it without you now?" So it's definitely an interesting story. But yeah, man, I'm super honored to be on here. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So, I'm a disruptor. I've been disruptive. I always challenged in college, always challenged my professors' assumptions because I disagreed. What happens. And what happens when you disagree or you try to disrupt things, people freak out.
Yeah.
Right. So tell us, a little bit, what are you doing that is disruptive and how has the reception been so far?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. It kind of reminds me of like the age-old disruptor is Socrates, right? He was the one that was always questioning everybody on everything, and we all know how that ended for him. So it can be dangerous to be a disruptor. But for me, so I've been a real estate agent for about 5 years now. I got my start really because of real estate investing, and the first couple properties I bought, I'm looking at these closing statements and seeing how much my agent is making. And it's like, man, he's a great guy, but like $12,000, $14,000, $16,000 on each home. I was like, shoot, I need to learn how to do this myself. And I thought, of course, well, I've got to become an agent. So I went and did that. I also, with my license, I started representing a new home builder, which was kind of an interesting introduction to agency, because in new construction, it's very common for buyers to be unrepresented. They just show up in the model home and go through the whole process unrepresented. So my first, nearly 50 transactions, probably about half of those were working with unrepresented buyers. So then when I really made a move to start building my own real estate business, doing more traditional, helping people list their homes and helping people buy, especially as I was working on the buy side and receiving these huge commission checks, I was having a harder and harder time going to sleep each night after cashing those, because I would ask myself the question of like, okay, did I really provide $20,000 of value to my clients? Kind of going back to that original question that I was having with my first buyer's agent of like, okay, he was great, but did he really provide $16,000 of value to this transaction? And for some people, the answer to that is going to be yes, but more and more people, especially now with the rule changes where people are having to have buyer agency agreements, where sellers are becoming less excited or less willing to offer buyer agent compensation, now home buyers are really having to think through, $20,000 to have a buyer's agent, what other options do I have? And that's where when you go online and look, it's like, well, what materials are there to teach you how to navigate the home buying process your own? I just saw that there's this gaping hole in the market. And because I love to educate people, I love to coach, I was like, man, this is an awesome opportunity to step in and fill what I think is a very real void and empower home buyers to navigate the home buying process without needing to hire a costly buyer's agent, as you said earlier, which can save them not only the 2.5%-3% commission, whatever that usually is, but I actually think that it puts them in a better spot to be in the driver's seat throughout the whole transaction, really being the one looking out for their own best interests, which not all buyer agents do a great job of looking out for their clients' interests, as I'm sure you've seen from your time in the industry as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I flipped a lot of homes in my day, rented out, did stuff like that, bought a lot of homes, and then got into commercial real estate where there are no buyer's agents. In
Yeah.
fact, if you show up with a buyer's agent, they just look at you like, who's this person? And I'm not paying their commission. Are you paying their commission? I'm not paying their commission. Then
Yeah.
yeah, like it's just not going to happen. But in residential, like we just been trained, taught, and educated that I need to have my representative and they need to have theirs, or else the transaction's going to go into fraud territory or something. I don't know.
And that's exactly the question. Like, what is that something? What are people so afraid of? And certainly, realtors and buyer agents have done a good job making the process sound as scary and terrifying as possible. But it's like 85, 90% of every real estate transaction is essentially the same. And yeah, there are some particulars where every property is unique, every seller and their motivations are a bit unique, but that 10% is not insurmountable for most people to overcome and to be able to get a deal across the finish line. And they can usually do it themselves and not have to pay a $20,000 fee to an agent. And you bringing up the commercial is so fascinating, because that was another area that I was just looking at, like, okay, these commercial transactions are 10 times the size of a real estate or a residential transaction, 10 times the complexity.
Yeah, put a zero behind any one of your resi transactions, and
Yeah.
200, 300 grand. Not, I mean, it happens all the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's so normalized to not have a buyer's agent there. And even looking at other countries in the world, I was talking with estate agents over in England, and it's like 99% of all transactions that are done in England, there's no buyer's agent. Like, it's very rare. And so it's kind of this US phenomenon where that has just become standard practice. And for decades now, it's gone unquestioned. And so, yes, being the disruptor that, like you, I tend to be as well, I like to ask the question of, wait, why are we continuing to do it this way? And surely there must be a better way. And so that's what I'm really trying to do now is educate home buyers on how to navigate the home buying process to correct some of the myths that realtors share about home buying and really just point them in the right direction.
So how does a client work with you? So they sign up for your program, or they just follow you on Instagram and listen to your advice? Like, how does this process work?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, as with anything that's kind of new, like I really haven't found anybody else that's doing exactly what I'm doing, which is homebuyer education for the purpose of representing yourself. Most all homebuyer, there's some wonderful homebuyer educators out there. You've had even some of them on your show, and they do wonderful work. So I'm not at all saying anything bad about them, but usually part of their recommendation is that you hire a wonderful buyer's agent, and here's the criteria for finding that person. Everything that I'm doing says, no buyer's agent involved at all. But because that's such a new model, and because we're talking about, for most individuals or most families, their primary residence, it's one of the most significant investments or purchases they're ever going to make. So there's a lot of trust that has to be built in order for them to trust me just as some random guy on the internet telling them how to buy a home without an agent. And so I've been doing this now for about 8 months, and I am giving away as much as I possibly can for free. So I've got a YouTube page as well as short form with TikTok and Instagram that's really like homebuyer insights and tips. My own DIY homebuyer podcast hosted on YouTube. So that's where I'm really trying to distribute as much content as I can for free to just create the category for folks of self-representation is a legitimate way of participating in the home buying market. And then I also have a community on a platform called School, and that's a free community for people to join. There's an essentials course in there that's free. It's about 4 hours that just gives kind of the high level overview of here's the steps of representing yourself in real estate. But the best part is being able to connect with other home buyers that are choosing to represent themselves and being able to ask in real time, all right, what have your experiences been? How did you navigate this? We do every other week a live call where I'm on there as well as others that are in the group. So those are the things that I'm really building to support people and giving it all away, which is not a long-term sustainable model. So at some point here, I really need to figure out how to monetize. I do offer like a one-on-one coaching service because there are some folks that it's like, all right, I don't want to do it totally DIY, but I also don't need a full-on agent. And so in that case, we just have a conversation about what it looks like for me to basically be your real estate consultant, where you've got on-demand access to me whenever you're ready to make an offer or review an inspection report, or you're in a tricky piece of negotiations. I'm able to help you workshop negotiation strategies and how to move forward on a deal, or give you the advice of, hey, this is not making sense, you should probably pull out of it. So it gives some people somebody in their corner that's not taking over the reins, but is still there with some professional background and expertise to give guidance throughout the most difficult parts of the process.
So in my mind, that's the perfect way to do it. Like, even me, I buy a lot of stuff. Sometimes I'm just like, I just want somebody to take a look at this and see if I'm out of my mind right now, because this seems weird. Mm-hmm. I've done a lot of transactions, and attorneys do this all the time, doctors do this all the time. Like, I think this is how, like, I've seen this 20 times, but something's off here.
Yeah.
Take a look. Like, consulting sounds like the perfect way to do it. If I'm going to buy a home and I've got any questions, I can just reach out, get a quick few minutes of your time, get an answer, and then move on.
Yep.
That's great. And I'm not saddled with a $20,000 fee.
Right. And man, the biggest piece of that is the alignment of the incentive structure, which is so that $20,000 fee that goes to a typical buyer's agent, or the 3% or whatever it comes out to being, that fee is only realized for them once the house actually closes. Up until the house closes, everything they're doing for free. And no agent likes to work for free. And so that's where all of a sudden, after a couple months of the searching process, you start to feel some weird pressure from your agent that was oh so patient the first few weeks. But now they're just kind of like, all right, I got to get this guy to pull the trigger and buy a home, because I'm wasting a whole bunch of time here and I need to cash that $20,000 check. I mean, that sort of misalignment, I think, is what a lot of buyers feel, of that, like, hey, wait a second, my agent makes more when I spend more, and they only get paid when I actually close on the house. So what do they want me to do? Spend as much as possible and buy as fast as I possibly can. Whereas the consulting model that I'm really going hard after creating does align with exactly what you're saying, of just that it's like, okay, like, I can move at my own speed. I'm not feeling the pressure, but when I need an expert set of eyes on things, when I need somebody else to bounce things off of, I can pay for that service, that time, and the outcome, my outcome as the coach or consultant, is not tied to whether or not you actually move forward on the property. I'm able to give, I think, more unbiased advice and counsel in those situations.
Okay. So tell me how your industry, the others are looking at you and thinking about you right now.
Yeah, I got a nice big target on my back. That is for sure. It's always kind of fun to read through the comments on my short form videos, because there's a lot of angry realtors in there that don't want to see the industry disrupted, and that's been a big thing that I've learned over the last few months. Like, not only is there a lot of educational materials that need to be built to support self-representing home buyers, but there's also a lot of consumer advocacy that needs to happen within the real estate industry because agents really do not want to work with self-represented or unrepresented buyers. And so that's the biggest area where I'm getting pushback is where I have agents that'll say, like, I won't show a home to an unrepresented buyer, or the agents get confused about working with an unrepresented buyer versus dual agency. And so they try to conflate what I'm saying and say that, like, well, I don't do dual agency. And so ironically, even though I set out to educate home buyers, I feel like a significant part of what I'm having to do right now is also educate realtors and brokers as to what the laws are about unrepresented buyers being a perfectly legitimate class of home buyers, miscorrect the misconceptions that realtors and home sellers have about working with unrepresented buyers. It's kind of funny having to correct misconceptions on both sides of the fence.
That makes a lot of sense. In commercial real estate, nobody bats an eye. Like, I can buy it directly from the seller. If there's a broker involved, great. I'm happy to work with a broker. I never get a broker on my side to help me. I will use the selling broker and I will get them to do as much as possible for us because they're making a ton of money.
Yeah.
But we don't need them. We can do the whole thing without it. And nobody, I mean, it's just like everybody's cool. Go to the title company. Like, they do the paperwork. They don't care who's involved,
Right.
But residential.
Yeah, the listing agents on the residential side are so freaking spoiled. And that's part of why I think they don't want to see any change, is because it's like their job, as it's traditionally been, is just like, get the photos, get the marketing, get it on the MLS, and then sit back and wait for buyer agents to call and tour the property and do all of the real heavy lifting, if you will, from a customer service standpoint, while you as the listing agent just wait to receive offers and review them with your seller. And so now, if there's not a buyer's agent involved, there are higher expectations of the listing agent to show excellent customer service. Now, they still represent the seller. I'm not asking them to do anything to the financial detriment of the seller, but showing excellent customer service, like, you're a salesperson. Like, that's what part of sales is meeting the potential buyer, the potential customer, showing off all of the highlights of the home and helping facilitate the best possible deal that you can. And so, yes, that's a part of the resistance that I feel from listing agents, is that, like, well, it's going to create more work. It's like, well, maybe, but you've been so dang spoiled to not have to do much as it is. Like, the amount of work that you're being asked to do is reasonable relative to the compensation that you're receiving on this deal, and it aligns with what you've already agreed to do for your seller as part of marketing and selling the home. So, yeah, trying to highlight that level of absurdity in terms of why do we need to have a whole nother broker, increase the transaction fees? Why do we need two people to do one person's job? Which I think you put a really fine point on when you compare it to the commercial world.
We list our own properties too, but some states don't allow that. So we had to, recently, we just had to find a broker like, hey, can you sign this listing agreement for us? And they'll just get some fee out of that. It's pretty crazy. But these commercial transactions are so much more complicated. And the way you do it is you just learn how to do it and then you go do it. And if we could disrupt the residential industry, to people, don't freak out, just go learn. Go spend a few minutes. It's not that difficult of a transaction. It's pretty simple. You can go find you, Nick, and be like, hey, like, I'm sure you probably have a checklist. Here's the 4 things you need to look at, or 15 things. Yep. It's not that many.
Yep.
And just go do it. Make the phone calls, ask the questions. There's lots of professionals that are getting paid through some part, and you save 6%. 6% on a $600,000 house, that's real money.
Yeah, no doubt. It's at least worth, like, exploring, should I do this myself? And I think that so many people you get kind of caught in the fear of the unknown, all of the what ifs of like, well, what if I miss this? Then am I going to have a multiple $100,000 mistake on the line? But the reality is, like you have suggested, there are so many other protections that are in place, whether that's title companies, the availability of home inspectors. If you're getting a loan, like lenders are very interested in making sure that it's not a bad investment. And so they've got their own underwriting and appraisal processes. You can hire a great real estate attorney if you are concerned about any sort of the legalities or you got anything weird going on there. So there's a lot of support within the industry and a lot of ways to do it while reducing your transaction costs by not involving these costly agents.
Yeah, agreed. And no offense to my real estate agent friends out there, but
of course,
the writing is on the wall, folks. The NAR ruling last year it was a shot across the bow.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't do anybody any good to just stick our heads in the sand and pretend like things aren't changing. We've got way too many stories of industries that refused to change. And, you can go through all of the blockbuster videos and not believing that Netflix was ever going to disrupt the market. And it's like, well, or even like with the travel industry, like it used to be to book travel, you had to have a travel agent. And travel agents still exist and they do some really incredible niche sort of work, but most people are not using them nowadays. Most people are just going on to Expedia or whatever their travel
Airbnb,
platform of choice is. Yeah, exactly. So similar changes are coming in the real estate industry, and I would much rather help equip home buyers for those changes and be ahead of the curve on those things than trying to fight to maintain this old guard system that really disadvantages consumers in the end.
Absolutely. So I love it. Disrupting the market, making a difference, improving people's lives, reducing their cost out of pocket, and encouraging them to educate themselves about a process that may be the largest purchase they ever make in their life. It's definitely a significant one, regardless. It's the path for most people who achieve wealth start in real estate, and then go on to do other things as they learn how money works. You were just interviewed by New York Times. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was quite an honor. We'll see how much of my interview they use for the article. I haven't gotten to preview it or anything yet, but it was with New York Times reporter Deborah Kamen, she's been around there for many years now and has broken some of the biggest stories, especially against the National Association of Realtors. But she was doing a big piece on 1 year in review of the NAR settlement and lawsuit. So this middle of March here, this Saturday is when we hit the 1 year anniversary of that. And so she was wanting to get insights on, all right, has that settlement actually changed anything in the industry, or what are the lingering problems that still exist? And so I was really honored to get to speak into my own experience of whether or not commissions have really come down, struggles that home buyers are still finding in the market when it comes to negotiating commissions, especially being able to speak to some of the problems that I alluded to earlier of where listing agents refuse to work with self-represented buyers, and how self-represented buyers are being unfairly barred from participation in the market, or they're making it unnecessarily difficult for self-representing buyers to save money, despite the fact they're not taking advantage of a professional service. So, yeah, I'm really curious to see how much of that. It was a great interview and a great conversation, and hopefully it'll be another piece of making real estate home buying better for consumers and moving the needle in some positive direction.
Yeah, amazing. Just amazing. I'm excited. Please let me know when that article comes out, and if it comes out before This does. I'll tack it in the show notes so people can check it out. So, Nick, if somebody's listening, they're like, I really want to save $30,000 on my house purchase and use that money to buy a car or invest it or do something else, go on a vacation.
Yeah.
Nick, like, how do they find you?
Yeah, I mentioned the resources. So the YouTube channel is a great place. I've got weekly content there, just on YouTube at DIY Homebuyer. And then I really encourage folks to join the school group. So that's skool.com/DIY Homebuyer. Like I said, for now and for as long as I can afford to keep it free, the plan is to make that a free community. The more people that we have in there sharing their experiences, asking questions, the more valuable that community becomes. I have put a lot of time and work into the essentials course and the resources that are all part of that. So in my mind, I always am a little bit hesitant to when you give things away for free, sometimes people don't value them for what they are, because these are things that I put a lot of time and effort and attention into to try and make them as good as possible. So don't devalue them because they're free, but do go and take full advantage. If you're wondering, is what I call DIY home buying, being a self-represented buyer, is that the right path? That school community should give you everything that you need to know to at least answer that question and get you started.
Yeah, wonderful. That's fantastic. Nick, thank you so much for being on the show. We'll make sure all of those links are in the show notes. Folks, go check out DIY Home Buyer. Almost said home builder, not home builder, DIY Home Buyer on YouTube or skool.com. And Nick, thank you so much for being on the show.
You're the man, Sam. I really appreciate the time. Thank you.
If this episode shifted your thinking, then share it with someone bold. And remember, capital is a tool. Use it to build a world you are proud to live in.